The following is a class on the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam given by His Grace Yaśodā-nandana Dāsa, a senior disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, on October 16, 2022. We are reading from the original 1962 edition of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. These 3 volumes of the first canto are also known as the Delhi Bhagavatams because Śrīla Prabhupāda authored them and published them in Delhi, India, and brought them with him to the United States in 1965. This recording begins with a description of the life of Lord Caitanya from page 8 of the introduction, the section titled His Birth.
I thought I would start by reading another verse from the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. This is on page 151, about the benefit of hearing about Krishna. It's from the same chapter, first canto, second chapter, text number 17. Srinvatam svakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana ridyantastu yabhadrani vidunoti surit satam. Translation by Śrīla Prabhupāda. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is also the Paramatma in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, does cleanse the desire for material enjoyment in the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge for hearing his, Krishna's messages, which are themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Hare Krishna. So I believe we are still on the introduction on page number 20 or 21. We'll read from page number 20, the bottom paragraph. This coincidence of the Lord's appearance and occurrence of the lunar eclipse make it clear about the mission of the Lord. This is referring to the birth of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that everybody was going to the Ganges for purification, for bathing. The mission of the Lord was to preach the importance of chanting the holy names of the Lord in this age of Kali, quarrel. The present age is meant for quarrel even on trifle things, and therefore the Shastras have recommended for this age a common platform of chanting the holy name of the Lord. Accompanied by melodious music, people can hold meetings for glorifying the Lord in their respective languages, and if such performances are executed in an offenseless manner, it is sure and certain that such persons will gradually attain spiritual perfection without any effort to undergo any other rigid methods. In such meeting, everyone, the learned and the fool, the rich and the poor, the Hindus and Muslim, the Englishman and the Indian, or the Chandala and the Brahmin, all can give an oral reception to the transcendental sound and thus purify the dust accumulated on the mirror of one's heart by unwanted association of material surroundings. And to confirm the Lord's mission, all the people of the world will accept the holy name of the Lord as the common platform for universal religion of the mankind. In other words, the advent of the holy name, lost the page. The advent of the holy name took place along with the advent of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When the Lord was on the lap of his mother, the child would at once stop crying as soon as the ladies surrounding him chanted the holy name with clap of hands. The peculiar incident was observed by the neighbors of the Lord with awe and veneration. Sometimes the younger ladies took pleasure in making the Lord crying and then stop him by chanting the holy name. So from the very childhood, the Lord began to preach the importance of the holy name. Lord Sri Chaitanya was known as Nimai in his early age. This name was given by his beloved mother because the Lord took his birth underneath a neem tree in the courtyard of his paternal house. I just want to make a brief comment about the previous paragraph where Śrīla Prabhupada says, in other words, the advent of the holy name took place along with the advent of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There is a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita where Krishnadas Kaviraj describes Kali Yuga Yuga Dharma Namer Prachar, that in the age of Kali, the actual Yuga Dharma, or the religion for the age, is this chanting of Hare Krishna. Kali Yuga Yuga Dharma Namer Prachar, the preaching of the name of Krishna, the chanting of the holy name. Tate lagi pita varna Chaitanya avatar. And for this reason, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in a yellow golden color. He has appeared. So this is just a very nice rendition by Śrīla Prabhupada of the actual meaning of the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When the Lord was offered solid foodstuff at the age of 6 months in the Annaprasana ceremony, the Lord indicated his future activities. It is a rule to offer the child at the time both coins and books to see the future taste of the child. The Lord was offered both sides, coins and the Bhagavat. But the Lord accepted Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam instead of the coins. When he was 5 years old, he was initiated for learning, and he showed himself a naughty boy. And when he was a mere baby crawling on the yard, one day it so happened that a snake appeared before the baby, and the Lord began to play with it. All the members of the house were struck with fear and awe, but after a little while, the snake went away and the baby was taken away by his mother. Sometime he was stolen by a thief in order to take away his ornaments, but the Lord took a pleasure trip on the shoulder of the bewildered thief. The thief was searching for a solitary place in order to rob the baby, and it so happened that the thief, wandering hither and thither, arrived at last just before the house of Jagannath Mishra, and he was afraid of being caught hold of. He therefore dropped the baby at once, and the anxious parents and relatives were glad to see the lost child. Once upon a time, a pilgrim Brahmin was received at the house of Jagannath Mishra. And when the Brahmin was offering the foodstuff to Godhead, the Lord appeared before him and partook of the prepared foodstuff. The eatables were rejected on being touched by a child, and the Brahmin again prepared the foodstuff. The next time, the same incidents happened. For the third time, the same attempt was made, and the baby was forcibly made to go asleep at night within the room. At about 12 in the night, when all the members of the house were fast asleep within the closed room, the pilgrim Brahmin offered his prepared foodstuff to his deity, and in the same way, the baby Lord appeared before the pilgrim and spoiled his offering. The Brahmin again began to cry, but as everyone was fast asleep, nobody could reply. At that time, Child Lord appeared before the fortunate pilgrim Brahmin and disclosed his identity as Krishna himself. The Brahmin was forbidden to disclose the incidents, and the baby went back to the lap of his mother as fast asleep. There are many such incidences in his childhood life. As a naughty boy, sometime he used to tease the Orthodox Brahmins who used to take bath in the Ganges. When they complained to his father, the boy appeared before the father as if just coming from the school. And at the bathing ghat, he used to play jokes with the neighboring girls who were engaged in the worship of Shiva with hope of getting good husbands. That is a practice amongst the unmarried girls in the Hindu family. While engaged in such worship, the Lord, as a naughty boy, appeared before them and said, "My dear sisters, please give me all the offerings you have just brought for Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is my devotee, and Parvati is my maidservant. If you worship me, the Lord Shiva and all other demigods will be more satisfied." Some of them refused to obey the naughty Lord, and he would curse them that on refusal, she would be married with an old man with 7 children by his previous wife. The girls, out of fear, and sometimes out of love, also would offer him all materials, and then the Lord would bless them with assurance that they would have very good young husband, and that they would be mother of dozens of children. These blessings would enliven the girls, but they used to complain the incidents to their respective mothers. In this way, the Lord passed his early childhood, and when he was just 16 years old, he started his own Chatushpati, village school conducted by a learned Brahmin. And in the school teachings, he would simply explain Krishna, even in the readings of grammar. Śrīla Jiva Goswami, in order to please the Lord, had later on composed a grammar in Sanskrit in which all the rules of the grammar are exemplified with the holy names of the Lord. This grammar is still current and is known as Harinamrita Vyakarana and is prescribed by the syllabus of Sanskrit schools in Bengal till now. During this time, a great Kashmir scholar of the name Keshav Kashmiri came to Navadvip to hold meetings on the discourse of Shastras. The Kashmir Pandit was a champion scholar, and he had traveled all the places of learning in India. At last, he came to Navadvip to contest the learned Pandits there. The Pandits of Navadvip decided to put forward Nimai Pandit, Lord Caitanya, before the Kashmir Pandit, thinking it wise, if Nimai Pandit was defeated, they would have another chance with a plea that Nimai Pandit was a boy only. And if the Kashmir Pandit was defeated, then they would be more glorified, because people will know that a boy of Navadvip defeated such a champion scholar of all India repute. And it so happened that Nimai Pandit met the Kashmiri Pandit while strolling on the bank of the Ganges. The Lord requested the Kashmir Pandit to compose a Sanskrit verse in praise of the Ganges, and the Pandit within a short time composed a verse of 100 shlokas in praise of the mother Ganges. He recited the verse like storm, and showed sufficient strength of his vast learning. Nimai Pandit also at once took by heart all the slokas without deviation of a line. He quoted the 64th shloka and pointed out some deficiencies in the calculation of rhetorical and literary irregularities. He particularly pointed out one word, Bhavani Bharta, and pointed out that this word conveys opposite meanings. Bharani means the wife of Shiva, And who else can be her bharta or husband? In this way, he pointed out several discrepancies in one shloka, and the Kashmir Pandit was struck with wonder. He was astonished as to how a student of grammar could point out such literary mistakes of an erudite scholar. The matter was ended prior any public meeting, and the news was spread all over Navadvip like wildfire. At last, Kevchav Kashmiri was ordered in a dream by the goddess of learning, to submit before the Lord, and the Kashmir Pandit became a follower of the Lord. This is quite a very important incident or lila in the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's very detailed in considerable detail in Chaitanya Charitamrita. The Lord was then married with great pomp and gay, and began to preach the congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord at Navadvip. Some of the Brahmins became envious of his popularity, and they put many hindrances on his path. At last, such Brahmins complained the matter before Muslim magistrate at Navadvip. Bengal was then governed by Pathans, and the governor of the province was Nawab Hussain Shah. The Muslim magistrate of Navadvip took up the complaints of the Brahmins seriously, and at first he warned the followers of Nimai Pandit not to chant loudly the name of Hari, but Lord Chaitanya asked his followers to disobey the orders of the Qazi, and they went on with their Sankirtan party as usual. The magistrate then sent constable and broke some of the mridangas where Sankirtan was taking place. When Nimai Pandit heard this incident, he organized a civil disobedience movement at Navadvip. He is the pioneer of civil disobedience movement in India for the right cause. He organized a procession of 1 lakh of men, that's 100,000, with thousands of mridangas and kartal, and the procession passed over the roads of Navadvip without any fear of the Qazi who issued the order. At last, the party reached the house of the Qazi, who went upstairs out of fear of the mass movement. The men assembled there at the house of the Qazi, showed haughty temper, but the Lord asked them to be peaceful. At this, the Qazi came down and pacified the Lord by addressing him as his nephew. He said that Nilambar Chakrabarti was called by him as Chacha, or the uncle, and as such Srimati Sachidevi, the mother of Nimai Pandit, became his sister. He asked Nimai Pandit whether a sister's son can be angry upon his maternal uncle. The Lord replied that rightly the Qazi was his maternal uncle, but when the nephew is a guest at the house of his maternal uncle, why he shall not be well received. In this way, the whole thing was mitigated, and there was a long discussion on Quran and Hindu Shastras between the two learned scholars. The question of cow killing was also raised by the Lord, and they were properly replied with reference to the order of the Quran. The Qazi also questioned the Lord about cow sacrifice in the Vedas, and the Lord replied that sacrifice of cow mentioned in the Vedas is not cow killing. In that sacrifice, an old bull or cow is sacrificed to give it fresh, younger life by the power of Vedic mantras. In the Kali Yuga, such cow sacrifices is forbidden on account of absence of such learned Brahmin able to conduct such sacrifices. In the Kali Yuga, therefore, all yajnas are forbidden because they are a useless attempt by the foolish men. In the Kali Yuga, only the Samkirtan Yajna is recommended for all practical purposes. The Kazi was convinced, and he became a follower of the Lord. He declared thenceforward nobody will put hindrances in the Samkirtan started by the Lord. The Kazi of Navadvip has left his will for his future descendants that nobody would hinder the Samkirtan movement started by the Lord. The Kazi's crematorium is still existent within the area of Navadvip, and all Hindu pilgrims go there to show their respects to the Kazi's graveyard. The Kazi's descendants are residents of that place, but they never objected Samkirtan, even during the Hindu-Muslim riot days. Would somebody else like to read?
Yes, I can. I have a version. The incident of Lord Chaitanya's life shows clearly that the Lord was not a timid so-called Vaishnava. A Vaishnava means a fearless devotee of the Lord. For the right cause, they can take any step suitable for the purpose. Arjuna was also a Vaishnava devotee of Lord Krishna, and he fought valiantly for the satisfaction of the Lord. Similarly, Birangaji or Hanuman was also a devotee of Lord Ram, and he gave lessons to the party of Ravana, the non-devotee camp. Therefore, the principles of Vaishnavism is to satisfy the Lord by all means. A Vaishnava is by nature a non-violent, peaceful, living being, and he has all good qualities of God. But when there is the question of blaspheming the Lord or his devotee, the Vaishnava never tolerates such impotency on the part of a non-devotee. I just wanted to make a point here of our group being a group of Prabhupada-focused disciples. And we are very much interested in protecting Prabhupada's legacy in his books, in his system of Krishna consciousness. And it is important for us to understand that we're not offending other people when we bring up issues like this concerning the changing of his books, the changing of his preaching systems, the changing of his instructions, or the avoidance of his instructions. Prabhupada would often tell us that he knew that many of the so-called leaders of the mission back in the 70s were not reading his books. And he also knew that they weren't chanting their rounds. And because of that, they were deviating from the process. So deviation seems to be something that goes on in many organizations, and even in Prabhupada's mission, there have been a lot of deviants. So it's our responsibility to speak up. I know some of you on the Facebook media channels, there are many media channels that we can use to present the truth of the matter to others, not because we're trying to fight with them, as sometimes people, I know they criticize myself. Oh, you're fault finding. You're not acting in a Krishna conscious manner. But they have to realize that when our guru is offended, we are offended. That's the point. When you offend the pure devotee of Krishna, then it is the responsibility of the disciples to step up and speak out to make sure that these philosophical distortions are not accepted as a standard in the Vaishnava tradition. I'll carry on. After this incident, the Lord began to preach and propagate his Bhagavad Dharma, or Sankirtan movement, more vigorously. And whoever stood against this propagation of the Yuga Dharma, or duty of the age, was properly punished by various chastisements. Two Brahmin gentlemen called by the names Chapala and Gopal, who also happened to be maternal uncles of the Lord, were also chastised by infliction of leprosy upon them. And later on, when they were repentant, they were accepted by the Lord. In the course of his vigorous preaching work, he used to send every day all his followers, including Srila Nityananda Prabhu and Thakur Haridas, two chief whips of his party, to go from door to door and preach the cult of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. I just wanted to make a comment here for us. Prabhupada's using the word cult here in quite a bit in his literature. Now, as all of you are aware, the term cult has become a negative term in the modern society, right? We had a group in Toronto, they were called COMA, Council on Mind Abuse, COMA. And they were attacking the temple, saying we were a cult like Jonestown, this group that committed suicide, 900 people. And I also had to deal with a fellow called Ted Patrick. Now, Ted Patrick, he came to Toronto. He kidnapped one of our devotees. Her name was Rudrani. Her husband, Vishnu Das, painted the famous Hare Krishna temple, Hare Krishna painting. He was also in Toronto. So they came and they kidnapped Rudrani from the Toronto temple. It was quite a big story. It became a national news story. And they took her to Nova Scotia and they tried to make her normal. The way they did it was they made her watch television. Oh, that's quite a brilliant idea. Yeah, make her normal, watch TV, read the newspaper. They tried to change her diet. And this way, they wanted to normalize her and make her back to being unbrainwashed. So this word cult means, if you look it up in the dictionary, it means a group with a set of beliefs. It doesn't mean some people that are brainwashed. Prabhupada referred to this brainwashing when this came out in the public. He said, yes, we're brainwashing people. We're cleaning their brains of all dirty contamination. That's what we're doing. We're not conditioning them to material existence. We're liberating them to get out of this material world and go back home, back to Godhead. So the term cult here is not a pejorative term, okay? It is a term that Prabhupada has used to describe, because traditionally, remember Prabhupada was very educated in India. So he's using different terms, and in this version, this is the unedited books, unadulterated, unchanged books. This is the original 1962 version of the Bhagavatam. I used to have the original copies, but I bought these off Maduha. I'm not sure if other people have it, but if other people have copies, but if you get a chance, everyone, it'd be wonderful to get a set of these. They're my favorite read of all the books. I have the strongest attachment to these versions of the Bhagavatam, and they're not changed, despite what some God brothers think that Prabhupada did imperfect writings with the Bhagavatams, and therefore they had to do all these edits. These edits were their so-called effort to serve, despite the instructions of Prabhupada, don't change the books. So this is just some thoughts on the word cult for you to review. I can't remember where I was. Where was I go? Yaśodā, where are we in the verse here?
I think you're on page number 26, 26, way in the bottom, or 27, the first sentence, in course of his vigorous preaching work.
Oh, here it is. A Vaishnava is by nature nonviolent.
In course of his vigorous preaching work.
In course of his vigorous preaching work, he used to send every day all his followers, including Śrīla Nityananda Prabhu and Thakur Haridas, two chief whips of his party, to go door to door and preach the cult of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. The whole of Navadvip was surcharged with the Sankirtan movement, and the headquarters was situated at the house of Srinivas Thakur and Sri Advaita Prabhu, another couple of the chief whips among the householders. So here we see that, and this is important for us as a group. Here, these people, Srinivas Thakur and Sri Advaita Prabhu, were at a house. So all of us, we have houses, we have headquarters, so we can treat our preaching centers as our houses. And these are the centers which we can propagate in our areas the Sankirtan mission to other people. This is very important. I wanted to mention here today that I'm looking at the list of people that have joined the class today. And I see that we've got 18 people on the connection. Last week we had 11 people. So we've expanded to 18. That's a celebration for us. This is a startup program being moderated by Bhakta Michael, who's soon to be initiated at the end of the month. And to get this type of response is very encouraging, and it should be an encouragement for everybody on the call. And it's because each of us we're a team, and each of us is a member of this team. And it's very important, to invite other new people to this group that want to become Prabhupada conscious, Prabhupada devotees, or aspiring to become Prabhupada conscious, because this is the mission of Lord Caitanya, to go house to house, door to door, person to person. And here in this group, we're presenting Prabhupada as it is. This isn't something about each one of us becoming so-called Diksha gurus. We're not interested, none of us here. I know the group that's here. It's a very beautiful group. We're all interested in promoting Prabhupada as our guru, and guru for other people that want to become Krishna conscious. It's so important. And when you read Prabhupada's books, just like today, Yaśoda's reading so beautifully from the Bhagavatam here, the introduction, and it's just inspiring to hear it. It's so beautiful to hear these pastimes that Prabhupada has is describing. It's an insight into the spiritual world that only a few people are allowed to get. This is not necessarily we're trying to, how can I say it, keep it for ourselves, but at least we're here as a group. And it is our hope that we can expand this group moving forward so that other people will feel benefit. That is what Krishna, when you give Krishna to others, then Krishna is pleased with you. This is the story of, in this pastimes here that Prabhupada's writing about Lord Chaitanya. His whips would go out and present Krishna consciousness to other people. We cannot be interested only in our own benefit or like capturing this for ourselves. We have to give this information to other people. And I could say that with the group expanding the way it is, this should be a great encouragement for all of us. So try to bring one good person to the group every week. Try to add new people to this so they can get the benefit of this reading. The whole of Navadvip was surcharged with the Sankirtan movement, and the headquarters was situated at the house of Srinivas Thakur and Sri Advaita Prabhu, another couple of chief whips amongst the householders. These two heads of the Brahmins and learned community were most ardent supporters of Lord Chaitanya's movement. Sri Advaita Prabhu is the chief agent to bring in the advent of the Lord. When Advaita Prabhu saw that the complete society is full of materialistic activities without any tinge of devotional service, which alone could save them from the threefold miseries of material existence, he, out of his causeless compassion for the age-worn human society, he prayed fervently for the incarnation of the Lord with continued worship by the water of the Ganges, together with the leaves of Tulsi. So far preaching was concerned, everybody was to do his bit of work daily according to the order of the Lord. So that's all of us. Once Nityananda Prabhu, accompanied by Srila Haridas Thakur, both were passing the main road. On the way, they saw an assembly of crowd roaring on the way. On inquiry from the passers-by, it was understood that the two brothers of the name Jagai and Madhai were creating public disturbances in a drunken state. It was also gathered from the information that the two brothers were born in a respectable Brahmin family, but on account of low association, both of them had turned to be debauchees of the first order. They were not only drunkards, but also they were meat eaters, woman hunters, dacoits, and sinners of all description. Srila Nityananda Prabhu heard all these stories and decided that these two fallen souls must be delivered first. If they are delivered from this sinful life, then the good name of Lord Chaitanya will still be more glorified. Thus thinking that both Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas pushed into the crowd and asked the two brothers to chant the holy name of the Lord, Hari. The drunken brothers got engaged on this request and asked Nityananda Prabhu with filthy languages. Both Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur hurriedly left the place, and the brothers chased them to a considerable distance. In the evening, the report of the preaching was submitted to the Lord, and he was glad to learn that such a pair of stupid fellows were attempted for deliverance. The next day again, Nityananda Prabhu went to see the brothers, and as soon as he approached them, one of them threw a piece of broken earthen pot, hurled on the body of Nityananda Prabhu. And once the broken part struck on the forehead of the Lord squeezing out flow of blood. Sri Nityananda Prabhu was so kind upon them that instead of protesting against the heinous act, he said, "It does not matter that you have thrown the stone upon me, but I still request you to chant the holy name of the Lord, Hari." So here we see the tolerance of the Lord to the sinful people, that even though he was harmed by them, he still forgave them and carried on with the preaching work. So this example is an example that we have to remember moving forward in our preaching work, that sometimes people will criticize us. You know, we've seen that recently. We get a lot of criticism because we encourage people to chant your rounds. Just chant your rounds, and people criticize us. Well, what do you mean chant your rounds? You don't have to chant. Like some people propagate that philosophy, where Prabhupada said fundamentally that a devotee begins by chanting the rounds, by following the regulated principles, by studying the books in association with good devotees. If you do that, then you can make advancement. If you don't, then your spiritual life is hampered. It's not. This is a privilege that we've created for everyone to get association, despite we're separated globally. And so in this separated situation, we're able to come together with the use of technology. And this use of technology is a means to inspire us. These short classes, 1 hour classes or an hour and 15 minutes, a few times a week, are meant to surcharge us so we can carry on with their preaching work. Like here in Hamilton, as an example, I'm just telling you, we've got 25 new bhaktas, 25, at least, maybe more. The network is quite big. Are they advanced? They're gradually, making devotees is a big challenge. You've got to give a lot of time to new people. You've got to spend a lot of time and tolerate everything that goes on around you and stay fixed with the mission of Lord Chaitanya in your mind. So with all of us in our groups, whether it's Radha Madhava in Toronto or Vijay Pandit in Italy, or Bhakta Michael in Las Vegas, like that, or wherever our membership is, we have to proliferate this Sankirtan mission through all these leaders that are present at the class here. This is a leadership class. That's what it is. It's an opportunity for all of us to capture the mission of Lord Chaitanya in association with others and push it forward. So, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, I wanted to suggest that maybe we could bring the floor open and people could present questions to you on the subject matter today, and answer some questions, because I'm sure there are some with our group. And then we could go like that for the rest of the class.
Well, one thing that I've seen while we were speaking, somebody asked whether or not there's any evidence about Lord Chaitanya's divinity, the position of Lord Chaitanya besides the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now, there are numerous quotations from various shastras about the exalted position of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it gives some verses from the Bhagavatam. It also gives verse from the Vishnu Sahasranam in the Mahabharata. But there are numerous other quotations that have been compiled by great acharyas like Bhaktivedanta Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Jiva Goswami, like that. So what I'm going to do is, while we're speaking here, I'm going to send some of these quotations by email to all the members of the group so people can get the benefit of these nectarian transcendental quotes. Jiva Goswami Prabhu, you had a question?
Yes, Prabhu, thank you very much. My wife and I are considering going to the local temple in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, to distribute tulsis that we have propagated from our tulsi plants as an excuse to introduce ourselves to the local community. And so my question is, in interacting with them, they're an ISKCON temple. I've already told them that I've been initiated by Śrīla Prabhupāda. They knew me as another person, and now I'm Jiva Goswami. So my question is, what approach should we take with those persons who are in the actual fold of ISKCON in presenting our movement?
One good way to do, the way that I like to approach people is we have a website at www.krishnaconsciousnessmovement.com, Krishna, consciousness movement, all one word. And there's numerous good articles on this website explaining what we're saying. Number two, you can take that little booklet, Prabhupada Siddhanta, with you, and you can distribute that, or that little booklet, Our Living Guru, if you can make some copies. And basically, this will be a very good way to present what basically the basic fundamental points that we're preaching. But the website itself has all of the various explanation of, where we're at philosophically and what we present. My personal attitude with most people in ISKCON is not to confront them, because many of them have got many, many layers upon layers upon layers of misunderstanding and misconceptions about Śrīla Prabhupāda's instruction, because we have to remember they're being continually subjected to waves and waves of propaganda about their official dogma from the GBC and the gurus in ISKCON and everything else. We have to understand that. So it's best to be very tactful, very patient. If you can get some copies of that little booklet, Our Living Guru, and also that little booklet, Prabhupada Siddhanta, which is also, both of these are on the website. Both of these are on the website. So I guess it's a matter of very tactfully presenting things. And I would try to avoid, if you're going to go to an ISKCON temple, trying to publicly deride many of the activities of their gurus, because it might cause a confrontation. I mean, I'm sure there are different ways of dealing with this. And I think Vishwakarma Prabhu knows, because he's dealt with this numerous times. So these are just a few suggestions.
Thank you, Prabhu.
I'd like to also chip in a bit of advice. With ISKCON people, I found that you're generally labeled by them as Ritviks, which is a pejorative term. And I would say this, that a lot of these people are lost, completely lost. And it comes down from the top, because these gurus, as both of you are aware, these people have these followers, which are like fanatical followers. So say, for example, you go there and you tell them that their guru is fake. What's their response going to be, Jiva Goswami?
Oh, they'll probably kick me out.
Not probably, they will. And in the case of Sulochan, what did they do to him?
Yeah,
All he did
they murdered him, right?
They murdered him. Now, I know that my experience online, and I know that you're also watching me online, I had some guy say to me, like he had no idea, that he wanted to cut my tongue out because I had said something about his guru, Rodnath. Now, are we going to get a good reception from these people? Do we want them in our group? Not really. I mean, go your way. Just go your way. In fact, don't come around us. The more we talk about them, in one sense, the more that gives them legitimacy, right? Like when you give the term, when you call somebody like Hridayananda, for example, to call him, recently I put up a post of him, many of you might have seen it, him being interviewed by a Christian preacher. Now the Christian preacher asked him beautiful questions. He was trying to get him to answer. Like he asked him about the clothes. How come you don't have sannyasi clothes on? You're just in this Ralph Lauren shirt and you got no tilak, no bead bag, no danda, no dhoti. You're a son, and you're called Goswami. Hridayananda Das Goswami. Now, think about it like this. What do you think Prabhupada Jiva Goswami would say if he saw this person? What would you think he would say? I know, I'll answer for you. I know what he would say. This is not the right behavior of a sannyasi, period. And I think Yaśodā can support this statement, having been around Prabhupada and seeing the behavior of these people. So these so-called God brothers that are misrepresenting our philosophy. This guy, this Christian fellow asked him all kinds of straightforward questions. And Hridayananda was yelling at him, screaming at the guy, basically. Oh, and saying things like, you don't know how to ask a good question. Now, I had some people that reacted to it online by saying, oh, I thought he did a good question. I thought Hridayananda handled himself perfectly. I'm looking at this, I'm going, these people are cuckoo. They're stupid. That Prabhupada used the term. So this is the problem that we've got in dealing with other people, especially those people that are in the ISKCON movement. Like, for example, there's Jiva Goswami. What do you think Jayadvaita would say if you criticized the edits that he put into the books, him and Dravida? What do you think he would say?
I think he'd tell some of his thugs to get me out of the way.
That's exactly right. Like, for example, in Alachua, they don't allow people to give a class from the original Bhagavad Gita. They don't allow people to speak from the original books. Rupanuga was refused admission to the class in Alachua because he wanted to read from the original 72 books. And they said no. So I'm just saying, if you're going to go to this, whatever it is, outpost of theirs, be careful, brother. Just be careful. You're walking into a den of wolves. They're going to eat you up. And if there's somebody stupid there, they may try to harm you. Just saying.
Thanks, Guru.
Yes, Rakesh or Ram Raghava, please.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. I just wanted to share two things. One, I heard there was an incident where a sannyasi named Tushta Krishna Swami asked Śrīla Prabhupāda on the plea that he wanted to wear Western clothes because he said people will react more favorably for the preaching. And Śrīla Prabhupāda strongly replied to him that, no, as a sannyasi, You preach for the people who are receptive. You don't try to change yourself. You change the people by strong preaching. And he made him promise Śrīla Prabhupada that he would not give up his sannyas clothes. So that's one incident. And then another one is, I don't like to do this, but I can't help but share an incident that I had in 1987 or so. Hridayananda Prabhu came to give a lecture at the Atlanta Temple for the Sunday feast. And there was a class, a philosophy class, that the professor had brought from Emory University nearby. And just after his lecture, just to ask a question to try to get some of the students to understand about the soul, I asked him, I raised my hand and I asked him, so how do you know that there is a soul? And I was dressed in devotee attire and everything, so you could tell that, I was a member of the group. But I asked him, how do you know that you have a soul? And his reply was, how do you know you have a nose on your face? That was his reply. And of course, all the other devotees got a big chuckle out of it. They laughed. And I didn't mind being, ridiculed. That wasn't the problem, but I was worried about the class. And so then he went on and on for several minutes. And at the end, the proof was that one of the students raised his hand and said, but you never answered his question. And then he changed the topic. And so that left a bad impression on the whole philosophy class. So I was real, concerned that this is the kind of impression a whole college philosophy class is going to get about our philosophy. But there's nothing I can do about it at that time. And that time I didn't understand the things that I learned about later.
Thank
Very
you.
good point.
Vijay Pandit, please. Vijay Pandit's in Italy, and he's a former Hridayananda Goswami so-called disciple. Please speak, brother.
Actually, I was. Actually, he was never allowed to give initiation, so I don't know if I was or not was, actually. It was in in this impersonal bubble inside. Also, I want to say something about Ram Raghava. Hridayananda Goswami, I know him very good, okay? And once, the last times he came to Delhi, he was telling to everybody how Śrīla Prabhupada loved that their disciples go around nice dressed as gentlemen and preach the Krishna consciousness, and that Śrīla Prabhupada never insist to wear sari, dhoti, kurta, or sannyasi dress. They like Prabhupada let them free. He never insist. It's just when Kirtananda came from India back with the sannyasi cloth, and he brought some dhoti for the other and other things. From that moment, the devotees start to wear sari, dhoti, kurtan, and so on. From that moment, before everybody was wearing normal dresses. So he was insisting with devotees that Prabhupada never pushed the devotees to wear the so-called devotee dress. This is what he was preaching to us. Like he was preaching also for so many times, that he was the one who was named from Śrīla Prabhupada to go on for the translation of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam books. That he was the one that Prabhupada give the reference that he have to go on to translate the books. So he told us so many, I don't know how to say, lies. Sorry.
I just want to point out, I was in Vrindavan in 1977 and 78, and Śrīla Prabhupada gave the service of translating the rest of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam to Pradyumna Das, also known as Pandit Ji, who is Prabhupada's personal Sanskrit editor. It is not a fact that Prabhupada told this Hridayananda Swami to translate the rest of the Bhagavatam. That is not correct. The service was stolen away from Pradyumna because Pradyumna and I were objecting to the current, the prevailing guru ideas at the time, their guru appointment, their vyasasanas, and everything else. So this idea that Prabhupada had authorized Sri Swami to translate the Bhagavatam is a falsehood. That is not accurate. Also, I want to point out the argument that in the beginning devotees did not wear dhotis, that was in 1965 and 66. As devotees went on and the movement went on, Prabhupada insisted the devotees wear tilak, the devotees wear dhotis, the women wear saris. Now, I can understand if somebody has a job, he has to show up at an office, or like if you go outside, you can wear clothes, regular clothes, that's fine. But devotees should not be fooled with this idea that Prabhupada did not want devotees to wear dhotis and kurtas. This is very common in Vaishnava culture. But there's a lot of falsehoods and fabrications that are being presented by this Krishna West group, claiming that Prabhupada didn't want women to wear saris and devotees to wear dhotis. They call dhotis some whatever they call it for children, like a diaper. They think it's a diaper. It's ridiculous. Krishna wore a dhoti, Lord Chaitanya wore a dhoti, Lord Nityananda wore a dhoti. So we follow the example of Śrīla Prabhupāda. Those who have deviated from Śrīla Prabhupāda, they're not the standard. They're not the standard that we should be following. And I wanted to address another point also. This is a very important point. Just in the last few days, I've had two devotees call me and discuss with me, why is it that there seems to be sometimes some dissension or apparent disunity among senior disciples or amongst Prabhupada disciples? And Prabhupada deals with this in the 5th canto of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And I want to read this because this is very informative. Why there is dissension. Where does the dissension come from? This is from the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 5th canto, 14th chapter, 35, 5:14-35. Śrīla Prabhupada says, the verse says, Kvachin mityo vyavaharan yat kinchid dhanam upayati vitta satyena. Sometimes conditioned souls exchange money, but in due course of time, enmity arises because of cheating. Although there may be a tiny profit, the conditioned souls cease to be friends and become enemies. Purport by Śrīla Prabhupāda. As stated in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 5:5-8, Pumsa striya mituni bhavametam tayor mita hridaya granti mahuhu. Atogriya kshetra sastapta viter janyasya mohoyam aham mameti. The monkey-like conditioned soul first becomes attracted to sex, and when intercourse actually takes place, he becomes more attached. He then requires some material comforts, apartment, house, food, friends, wealth, and so on. In order to acquire these things, he has to cheat others, and this creates enmity even amongst the most intimate friends. Sometimes this enmity is created between the conditioned soul and the father or spiritual master. Unless one is firmly fixed in the regulative principles, one may perform mischievous acts, even if one is a member of the Krishna Consciousness movement. We therefore advise our disciples to strictly follow the regulative principles. Otherwise, the most important movement for the upliftment of humanity will be hampered due to dissension amongst its members. Those who are serious about pushing forward this Krishna Consciousness movement should remember this and strictly follow the regulative principles so that their minds will not be disturbed. Again, the foregoing was the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 5:14-35. Now, I want to point out, there was one initiation ceremony where Śrīla Prabhupada said, what are the 5 regulative principles? So the devotee recited the first 4 regulative principles, and then Prabhupada said the 5th regulative principles is to chant 16 rounds. Now, this is especially applicable for devotees who have accepted initiation as followers and students and disciples of Śrīla Prabhupada. Because now there seems to be a tendency with many devotees, and I'm not trying to criticize any individual, that some devotees think, well, I've been a devotee for so long, I understand the philosophy, I offer a piece of incense in the morning, I cook my prasadam and offer it, so therefore I don't have to chant my rounds, or I'm too busy to chant my rounds. No, make the time, some way or other, make the time. I had an experience in 1993 when I went to Florida, to Orlando, and I met a devotee who is now with the Gaudiya Math as a Swami. And he was asking me, says, I know you've been chanting your rounds all along, but how do you do it? I said, well, when I get up in the morning, I take my bath and then do the puja, and then I chant some rounds. And then if I have to go to work, I have to tape a Prabhupada in the car, and I chant while Prabhupada is there. I have bead bags in my hand, or you can have a clicker. It says, when at noon, during my lunch break, I chant more rounds. At night, I chant more rounds. I chant every day at least 16, many days 20. He says, oh. I says, well, you have a car, you have a tape recorder or a CD-ROM. Use the technology, put Prabhupada on your side and chant. See, the difficulty is that many devotees have got these strange interpretations of Prabhupada's teachings, and they neglect the fundamentals, because here it is. This is the explanation from Śrīla Prabhupada why there is dissension amongst the members. It is not a personal thing. It is not a personal attack against anybody, because anybody can chant. We say so many things all day between husband and wife, when you go to the store, when we deal with our parents, when we deal with our friends, when you go to the supermarket to buy food. We say so many things. So we should train our mind and structure our day in such a way that we make some time for chanting Hare Krishna and put Prabhupada on our side. Take a tape, go on YouTube, put Japa Prabhupada. There's dozens of tapes of Prabhupada chanting Japa. Listen to His Divine Grace and get the transcendental benefit of hearing the Mahamantra from Prabhupada and chant with Prabhupada. Prabhupada is there in his books, in his lectures, and also when he chants the Mahamantra. There's no difference. There's no difference. Hare Krishna. Anybody has any comment on this?
Yeah, and please ask some questions. We have a few more minutes in the class. Just before we proceed with questions, please come up with a question and ask it. But remember that on Wednesday this week at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're reading from Caitanya Charitamrita. And this is a very ecstatic class as well. And I wanted to say this. We're getting used to this routine. Okay, the routine is Saturday Bhagavad Gita class at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sunday Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And on Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's in the Canada, US. So on the West Coast, it's 5 p.m. So these classes are a routine. And this routine, if we follow this, our group, and we expand the group, before you know it, there's a class. You know, time marches very fast. So this habit of listening and associating with other devotees is an innovation for us as a group. And if we stick to this, then it will protect us as we move forward week after week together and cultivate this knowledge. This is really practicing Krishna consciousness in association with others. I know a lot of us, we feel a little isolated. You know, I don't have any association. I'm in Thailand, or I'm in China, or I'm in India. But with the use of technology, and that's really what this is about. We're using these tools to serve Krishna. And I see personally, I see a tremendous potential in our group, Ram Raghava, tremendous potential. And I'd like you to mention your realizations on this for us right now, if you could.
Who are you asking, Prabhu?
I'm asking you.
Okay. Yeah, it's been a tremendous response, and I'm very happy with all the people joining, and it's created a lot of, it gives us something to look forward to during the week, and it enhances, in my personal life, it enhances my day-to-day enthusiasm of practicing Krishna consciousness, because it is another goal that I'm working towards. And it's very fulfilling because we're getting the association of all these wonderful devotees.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Nice.
I see Joey Jai Gaurasundar in Thailand would like to speak. He raised his hand. Please, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Bhaktisiddhanta said in no uncertain terms on more than one occasion that he was disgusted with his god brothers. Śrīla Prabhupāda expressed similar sentiments about his god brothers and many of his senior disciples. So maybe this is just something that's always going to be present in Vaishnav culture, this dissension or disgust with other people's perspectives and behavior. Any thoughts on that?
Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, could you comment on that for us, please?
Yeah, it is a fact that Prabhupada many times commented that Bhaktisiddhanta left early because he was surrounded by too many neophyte disciples. And Prabhupada many times complained that many of his disciples were not serious about reading his books and studying his books. In 1977, one prominent GBC member met Śrīla Prabhupada in London with several big book distributors. So they went to see Śrīla Prabhupada, and the senior devotee introduced such and such devotee, he's distributed that many books. Then he pointed out, well, such and such devotee has also distributed that many books in this country, that country. Prabhupada said, that is very nice. So which one of you have read all my books? And nobody raised their hands. Nobody raised their hands. Prabhupada said, I've not translated these books just for making money. These books have been translated so my students will read them and study them. Another time there was a devotee named Jai, a devotee in Los Angeles. He basically was initiated in Mexico. And after the initiation ceremony, Śrīla Prabhupada asked him to come upstairs to his room. So he went upstairs, and then Śrīla Prabhupada took his bead bag in his hand, and he said, don't be like so many devotees. They chant 16 rounds. Then Prabhupada dropped the bead bag on the coffee table. He says, then I do nonsense all day. So Prabhupada wanted his devotees to take the process seriously and study these books, because otherwise there's every opportunity for people to be misled. That's why I read that purport from the 5th canto about dissension. There's so many letters from Śrīla Prabhupada where Prabhupada was pleading with his disciples not to engage in fighting with one another and cooperating. And sometimes, due to Kali Yuga is described by Prabhupada in some places as the age of dissension and hypocrisy, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. On the slightest issue, people will fly off the handle, start a fight, start accusing people. This is not the behavior of Vaishnavas. Those that are trying to advance in a practice of Krishna consciousness, we have to learn tolerance, and we have to hear and be considerate of other devotees, even people that we may not necessarily agree with. But I see the most ridiculous interpretations sometimes with people that I can't comprehend exactly what they're trying to say. Why not be tolerant and patient? It's like Prabhupada used to often quote Chanakya Pandit, that when we look for gold, even if gold falls in the mud, you take the gold out of the mud. You don't reject the gold because it's fallen into the mud. So in the same way, devotees have to be more tolerant, more patient, and look at the large picture of trying to form an alliance, trying to make some progress to preach for Śrīla Prabhupada.
But let me interrupt. Specifically, though, what I was getting at was Bhaktisiddhanta said in no uncertain terms that he was disgusted with his god brothers, and Vishvakarma posted something about this the other day, and
God
we discussed
brothers
it.
or disciples? Bhaktisiddhanta didn't have many god brothers. He had many disciples.
Well, I'm not sure. I thought it was god brothers, but let's say, for the sake of the discussion, it's disciples. That serves the same point. And
Okay.
Prabhupada expressed similar sentiments, and my point is it's nothing new. It's been there for a long time, and it just seems that it's going to be part of life, this descent. And in Bhaktisiddhanta's word, he used it. It's there in a post. He said he was disgusted. And Prabhupada commented on it. He said Bhaktisiddhanta would have stayed longer if he wasn't so disgusted with what he saw before him. I'm sure you're familiar with this, Yasoda Prabhu.
Yes. The statement that Prabhupada made, that he was disgusted of having so many neophyte disciples.
Okay.
Another time he made a remark that if he could have sold a marble palace in Calcutta to print books, he says it probably would have been better. So you are correct. Right. You are correct. It is a fact of life, and it's something that we have to be very aware of what we're dealing with. This point I made earlier, though, especially for those devotees that have been initiated, it's important that people make an effort to chant their rounds. Because I've seen in the past of devotees trying to present themselves as big authorities, as big learned devotees, as big experienced devotees, but they don't follow the process. So it's not going to have much of an effect. People can talk all they like, but if we want to be effective, both in our practice and preaching, we have to follow the process that Prabhupada has given us. But your point is very well taken. That's very, very good.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu.
Yes, Ram Raghava Prabhu.
I wanted to comment on this as well. This ISKCON movement, Jai Gaur Sundra, is Gaudiya Math Part 2. It really has become like that, and quite extreme in its philosophical
perversion.
Yeah. The philosophical deviations are very severe, and the confusion is apparent to all of us. We see it, and therefore we should move forward with confidence that what we're doing is the right thing, and what they are doing is the wrong thing. Now, I had a question that came up. I'll read it from Sundar Ananda.
In Australia.
Australia. He writes, what is the opinion of visiting Vrindavan for pilgrimage? Should we stay away from ISKCON Krishna Balaram Mandir? Surely this is a sacred place of pilgrimage. Okay. I have a recent incident with a devotee that's living in Vrindavan. And I call him a spy. He's one of my spies because he's living there, but he's aware of what's going on, but he still lives there in the temple. He goes and takes the prasadam from the altars. He goes to the Mangal Arti. Like he said, right now, Jayadvaita is in Vrindavan with his disciple that's dying. What's his name? What's his name of his disciple?
Kadamba Kanan Swami.
Yeah, Kadamba Kanana. And so he's there with him. So I just got this information a couple of days ago. So this isn't like out of date. It's not old story. It's not an old story. It's a recent story. And this devotee that I know, he goes every morning to the Guru Puja ceremony. And he mentioned that Jayadvaita hasn't shown up once at the Krishna Balaram Mandir Guru Puja ceremony. Doesn't come to the artis. He doesn't go to the Guru Puja where this other Prabhu does, who's a godbrother. In fact, he said to me, whenever he sees Jayadvaita, he runs away from him. Runs away. He said that his shoes were beside Jayadvaita's shoes one day, and he waited till Jayadvaita got his shoes so then he could get his shoes, so he didn't have to even look at him. Interesting. So yeah, I've been to India 10 times in the old days, not the new India, from 1973 to 1983. And I used to go with a fellow Nandikeshwar. We used to go to Jagannath Puri. It was away from ISKCON. There was no ISKCON connection, but a wonderful place of pilgrimage for us. We would go to all the sacred spots, the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the Garuda Stamba. I used to go chant my rounds there beside the Garuda Stamba because you could do that. You didn't have to go in to the temple to stand there outside the temple at the Garuda Stamba. I chanted my rounds every year at Haridas Thakur's Bhajan Kutir. I went to Tota Gopinath, the Gundija Gardens, swam in the oceans there. It was beautiful. So in the same way, we went to Vrindavan. I can remember one time we made a mistake. Prabhupada said we could go to take bath in Radhakunda. Some of you may remember the story if you were there. We were all there and we dived in to the Kunda and swam across like a bunch of, Westerners. I remember I almost drowned in the middle of the Kunda because I wasn't that good of a swimmer. And, in the middle, it's longer than you think. I started to go down. I thought, well, even if I die here, I died in the lap of Radharani. So when we got back to the temple, Prabhupada was told about what we did. And it was really a mistake. We made a mistake. It wasn't, you were supposed to dive in and start doing the breaststroke or, swim across the river. You're supposed to bathe, which was just, as all of you know, you just put the water on your head, you bathe like that, instead of swimming and diving and cannonballing into the water. Prabhupada saw that. He said that we shouldn't do that, but it was a forgivable offense because it was like landing on the lap of the mother. The mother doesn't mind when the child takes his dirty feet and puts it on her sari. So like that, there are lots of places in Vrindavan that you could go to where you can have the ecstasy of Vrindavan. As far as accommodation, for us, if you want to go to these temples, you may not be welcome because they're run by compromised devotees. These people are compromised for money and for accommodation. And remember, these people are doing jobs in these temples. They're not working for free. They get paid salaries, and they're told what to do. And if they find out you're coming, like Jai Gaur Chandra could shed some information on the way things operate in Mayapur. These kinds of compromised environments for us are not really pleasing. Change kirtans, change deity worship formats, change books. All this stuff is not our style. So we can go to these places and visit all the holy lands. That doesn't change. To actually stay in the ISKCON environment is toxic for me, and I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. But that's that's my feeling about it. I just don't want to even go around these people. In Toronto, they've made up stories now that somebody else, this Batra character, was the person that bought the Toronto temple, some Indian guy. Ridiculous. Lies, complete lies. Do I want to go to the reunion, 50-year reunion of the Toronto temple? No. Am I interested? No. Why? Because you make your house Vaikuntha. You can make your house a spiritual abode. Like, I don't want to talk about myself so much, but I'm giving you guys examples of how Krishna worked here. Sundarananda, just 1 second. I've been given 17 deities have come to the front door of my house, brought by other people. I did not go out and try to get deities. I never felt qualified to be a pujari. But people came. I've got 3 sets of Jagannath deities. 3 sets. I have an altar in the kitchen, and I have an altar in the dining room. Mother Subhuti gave me a set of Gaur Nitai deities. So this way Krishna came to me through other people and created an atmosphere of Gaudiya Vaishnava feeling here at this house. And in this way, all of us, we can create a Vaikuntha atmosphere in our houses. That's what this is about. Unfortunately, Prabhupada's Mandir, I might go there if I was there. People are asking me to come to India. So I might go there. I'll walk around. I'll take the darshan. I'll, this and that, go there. But am I interested in compromising myself with them? No. No, thank you. I have Prabhupada's kurta here at this ashram that he gave me personally. I have the dust and the flowers, a huge box of it, taken from his body when he was placed in samadhi, that I have at my house. I have his cartels that he played at the first arti at the Krishna Balaram Mandir. These are transcendental assets that all of us have, and we should take advantage of that. So Sundar Ananda, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks very much for your answer, Prabhu. Specifically, I was just curious about the fact that the Krishna Balaram temple is it's a place of pilgrimage where Prabhupada is in samadhi, and also the museum is there. There's so much history there. So it was more, I was thinking as a place to visit specifically for that purpose, not so much for compromising, but would you encourage devotees to visit on those grounds? Or?
Sure, do it. You don't have to stay, go ahead. It's just common sense. Sure. It's no big deal. We're impervious to them. We're convinced of what we're doing. We're convinced they're wrong. I would suggest don't say anything if you're there, because they'll kick you out.
Is that the mood of the other Vaishnavas here as well, like Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu? Are all devotees here prepared to visit Vrindavan, or would like to go, or are you all quite happy not to visit? Or I'm just curious about the collective mood here in this regard.
Yes, Yaśoda, please speak.
One thing you may want to do while you're there is you can visit the various Gaudiya Vaishnava temples like Madan Mohan, Radha Govinda, Radha Gopinath, the Samadhi of Jiva Goswami, at Prabhupada's room. There's a lot of places, the Yamuna. There's so many different places. Visit the Krishna Balaram temple, offer your obeisances. But, I mean, you know what is going on. You obviously are pretty educated on the issues. I would not listen to the lectures of some of these people. That's my personal opinion, because I've seen what they do in their lectures. It's like some kind of dogma, and they don't allow open discussion. But you can pay obeisances to the deities, and you'll get great benefit from that.
Is there someone else that wanted to? Oh, Dr. Michael.
I just wanted to say, just in finishing, that I noticed that Lokanath Swami was giving a Bhagavatam class a couple of days ago. I was thinking, this is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Just use your common sense, brother. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're not fanatical. We're realistic. You know, we just
Thank
deal
you so
with
much.
it. You walk with confidence. That's all.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your time. Cheers.
Ram
Dr.
Raghava.
Michael.
Ram Raghava.
Thank you. I had a question about chanting Hare Krishna every day that we were talking about. So because I have a job and I do a full morning program, sometimes I have to chant my rounds while I'm driving to work. But there was one devotee who had told me that you should not chant japa when you're driving. Is that true? Or?
Well, it's another one of those things. Prabhupada made many different statements at different times, because what happened in the early 1970 or 71, some devotees in Arizona were driving a car chanting, and they got involved into a deadly accident, and a devotee died. So I remember Prabhupada issued some letter, focus on driving and things like that. But there's nothing wrong if you chant and listen. I know many devotees, they get these little clickers and they count the rounds. And I chant all the time in the car, because I know I've seen so many situations, and I try to be a very careful driver. And I've seen so many situations with people get into accidents, trucks on the side of the road, big cars hitting one another. I mean, I was born in Canada and lived in Canada for many years, and the winter over there can be quite treacherous driving. I mean, Vishwakarma knows that every February in Canada and Ontario, you would get freezing rain, and you still have to work. You still have to go to the store. So it's like you have to take shelter of the holy name. Put the tape of Prabhupada chanting. I don't know if you want. I mean, I chant with my bead bag in the car. I mean, some people chant with a clicker, or else you can chant with Prabhupada while he's chanting there. That's just a humble suggestion. But
sure.
the point I'm trying to say is put Prabhupada on our side. Use the technology that we have to place the tape of Śrīla Prabhupada or the CD-ROM of Śrīla Prabhupada or YouTube Prabhupada chanting, and we can hear him. We get the transcendental benefit.
Yeah, when I go to work, I have to go through a security gate, so I always try to have a tape of Prabhupada playing, chanting japa, so that the security guards can hear as I drive by.
Beautiful. We've got a couple of questions. One from Dorian Phillips. Prabhu, I don't know.
Oh, that's Dharma Bhavana in Dallas. Yes. Dharma Bhavana. Haribol, Prabhu.
And then Michael, too, after that. Okay, Dharma Bhavana, please speak.
Okay, yeah. I was just thinking how if anybody wants to go to India, especially or Vrindavan, anywhere, it just seems to me that it's really good to have a specific purpose in mind, what you're going to do, which devotees you're going to visit, where you're going to stay at, especially in northern India. Northern India is like criminals everywhere. It's really dangerous. And the South India is, to my experience, is much more less criminal. But you have to be really careful anywhere in North India. And if you go there, everybody's spoken just really nicely about what to do and what to avoid. Don't expect too much if you go to a place that's not very friendly. They see some older Western devotee, people are going to ask, who are you? What's your name? Who gave your name to you? What is your purpose here? People will ask those questions to you. So you have to be prepared to, like devotees are speaking, go to the different holy places, but have some idea of what you're going to do and who's going to be your guide and your helper and advisor.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Dr. Michael, please.
Well, I'm not sure if I should ask this question in the class. It might be something I should ask.
Go ahead, ask.
All right.
Don't be afraid.
He knows how to stir things up. He knows how to stir things up.
This is far from that. I have a respiratory illness, and when I chant my rounds, sometimes I lose my voice after several rounds, and I can't really chant audibly. Is it acceptable when I'm chanting to chant silently and still count my rounds?
Yeah, I'll answer that. Yes. Just keep going. Don't stop.
Even when I can't hear?
Yeah, don't worry about that, brother. Like I said, for all of us, and Prabhupada, one day on a walk, he called me the person Bhagavat. He pointed his cane at me. I thought, oh, this is definitely a mistake. But what I looked it up, the definition was that a person that had common sense in applying the principles of Bhagavatam to their life. Not that you're some kind of avatar type thing, but you're just applying. So I thought, okay, I've got common sense. And, I think that all of us just use your common sense. That's all. Like if you've got to chant, it's better to do the chanting if you're driving in the car than not chant. Okay, it's not the best way to chant your rounds. We all know that. But if you don't chant, if you don't have any time and all you can do is chant, then do it. Just use your common sense. There's different ways. I usually tell people like this. I say to them, okay, listen, like for me when I chant my rounds. So when I get up, I start chanting. I find I get going, I get to 4 rounds. I get to 4 rounds. That's not bad. I think, geez, I'm at 4 rounds. That's a half hour. I thought, well, okay, I've got more time here. Let me get to 8 rounds. Boom. When I get to 8 rounds, that's another half hour. That's an hour in. That's okay. I got to have my rounds done. Now, say if you have to go out hypothetically and you need to go somewhere and you got to drive. So you say, okay, I'll do 4 more rounds while I'm driving. I've got to drive for an hour. So I'll chant 4 more rounds. Guess what? You're at 12. When you get home from your ride, you could say to yourself, okay, well, listen, I think what I'll do is I'll take another half hour. I'll chant this 4 rounds, and then I'll be my 16 done. Is not that hard, to get to 16? Well, if you start in, you pace yourself accordingly, just practically, you do the best. In your particular case, and I've told you this, don't worry about that. It's your intent that's more important than your physical ability to chant. It really is. Your intent to serve Prabhupada with your body, your soul, your mind, your money, just like the case of you. I asked everybody here, I asked Michael to host this class. And he goes, well, I don't have a computer. So I go, okay, well, what are you going to do? Well, I'll sell my bass guitars and I'll sell my amps. I'm not using them. I'll buy this computer. Okay. Now, what does that mean after you get the computer, Michael? Well, you have to learn how to operate it. So now he's been on a course of learning how to operate his computer so he can do this class. Even today, he had some trouble doing it, but he still got the class off the ground, and then next week he'll be better. So like that, it's really intent. Your intent to serve, your desire to serve is the most important thing. The technical aspects, everybody here is a senior man or a woman that you know what you're doing. Just use your common sense and go ahead and do your devotional service, and we'll push on. It's just that simple. Yaśodā Prabhu, please.
Well, we're almost past our time here, but I just want to say one thing about this devotee that asked that question. Dharma Bhavana is carrying on very nice active preaching with him and his wife. They are holding programs on any of the major festivals at a local Montessori school that is managed by some Indians. And they would do wonderful kirtan, wonderful deity worship, get all kinds of people to pay obeisance to Prabhupada and the deities. He's doing very wonderful service, very wonderful. The same thing for our devotee friend in Italy. Our devotee friend in Italy, Vijay Pandit, is very active in preaching to people, meeting with people, giving them prasadam. He's translated the little booklet, Our Living Guru, the Prabhupada Siddhanta book in Italian. There's many of these devotees on this call, even Bhakti Katarina in St. Petersburg. She's very active on the internet preaching. This is what we want. We have Ramdas Maharam in Russia, also another devotee that's actively engaged in preaching, sending out information to devotees. This is what we want, to get devotees involved in preaching and convincing people to take shelter of Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Let's Yaśodā Prabhu, we'll just finish up and I want to thank everybody for attending the class. I've looked at the number of people here. We had 18 people join the class, and 18 people have stayed for a class which is now at 1 hour and 47 minutes. So it's saying one thing, that everybody here is interested in association, and this is really a grand sort of acknowledgement of the potency of this group and the membership here. So let's carry on with this program. Remember, Wednesday there'll be a class. It's a really great class. Yaśodā reads from the Caitanya Charitamrita. And next Saturday, Ram Raghava, we're going to try to purify our list. If you have people that want to join, welcome them in. All of you know who to select as people that will fit into this group nicely and benefit from it. Trust me, brothers and sisters, this is not forever. I know that. I have experience in building things with many people in my days in many industries, but in the music industry, I was doing a successful gig in the city here. We had thousands of people coming out every year to see us play. It was called Living the Dream Tour, and I used to tell them, this dream is going to go away. So remember that. This is not forever. Yaśodā-nandana is not forever. Michael, all of us here, we come and go. So we want to continue to build this in perpetuity so that it carries on with other people when we're not here. Right now, we've got a great group. It's going to get better. Get excited, everybody. Be excited about this, because it's here now. You're in the middle of this explosion of Prabhupada consciousness. You're in the middle of it. Believe me when I'm telling you, I know this for a fact. This will go away, but we won't go away if we just keep going forward. So how do you want to end the group, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu? How do you want to end today's discussion because it is.
Dr.
people-
Mike, do you have a chanting of the Mahamantra available? Of Prabhupada chanting?
His problem is his computer. He's just learning how to do it, Yaśodā. He's
Okay,
afraid
that's
he
fine.
He might disconnect
That's
the
fine.
class. It's okay,
fine.
Michael. Just let it be. Your mic's off.
I got locked out this morning, and I had to put a new password in the Microsoft and do all these changes to
Okay.
get back on my computer.
You'll get to it. You'll get to it. So
Yeah,
we'll
I'm
offer
figuring out
mutual
how to use-
obeisances to everybody. We'll offer respectful obeisances to everybody, and we'll assemble again on Wednesday. Vancha kalpa tarubhyasya kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Wonderful.
Haribol.
Hare
Beautiful.
Krishna. Vishnu.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu.
It
Thank
was
all of
so amazing.
Yeah. We have to keep on.
We will.